Good morning, Remax Hallmark realtors. Good morning, the audience that may not be with the Remax Hallmark, consumers, clients of our agents. Welcome to another episode of Remax Hallmark Market Report. This is our first episode for 2025. My name is Steve Tabrizi. I'm Chief Operating Officer with Remax Hallmark. We operate across Ontario. We have also an office in the US in Florida. This morning, I am covering the state of the market, obviously in particular to the real estate in Ontario and Canada. But I thought it's very important that we talk about the tariff and also the policies that we have heard in the last few weeks, particularly coming from the US, and also the policies that our federal candidate are promising for future of the housing. So let's just start. The presentation will be roughly for about 35 to 40 minutes. You will have a Q&A at the end. And my moderator is Shant, who is always helping me to set up these presentations. And he will take your question down and he will read them. And I'll try my best to answer all your questions. Just a full disclaimer, I'm not an economist. Any reference in presentation, I've used multiple sources to gather these information, banks, market reports, financial institutions, people, economists, and also any reference to any political party. We have no affiliation and we don't do any promotion of any parties. So these are basically my personal opinion and just a full disclaimer. So let's talk about trade more than anything else. NAFTA, which was the old name, and now they call it USMCA, which is basically US, Mexico, Canada. NAFTA was created in 1994. Back in 2020, perhaps maybe the first term of the President Trump, he renegotiated, and now he's basically trying to renegotiate again. Originally, NAFTA in 1994 basically was based on the 62.5% of the North American content, meaning any product that was basically manufactured or produced or exchanged or trade in North America, 62.5% of it should have been an American. Then back in 2020, they increased that content to 75%, mostly because they were trying to block the Southeast Asia's influence into the market, which is primarily China. And another issue that was addressed during the second round, which they changed the name to USMCA, was basically the labor. There is a discrepancy huge between the Canada and US compared to the Mexico's in terms of the labor. And an American mostly wants all the manufacturers that mainly set up in Mexico that they have a fair labor. And that's why they came up with the minimum $16 an hour wages in a Mexican market. There was also discussion about the digital trade and what is a digital trade? Digital trade is basically the right to the data, right to the information that for years the American companies are complaining that Canada has been a protectionist and does not share those data. And as you know, the data in today's digital trading is really a big commodity. That's why the big companies such as Netflix, such as Facebook, such as Instagram, all they base on that to build that. There was another also major changes to the contract, which was basically called sunset clause. Previously, there was no sort of expiry date with a trade. Now, every 6 years, basically, you're supposed to sit down again and you are basically have this liberty of the renegotiating, which bring it to 2026. The last one was signed in 2020. And that's why you see Mr. Trump right now, it's starting those discussions to open it up for the negotiation to 2026. There are also discussion about the agriculture access for particularly the American companies to have access to the Canadian market, to the dairy and agriculture, and also in Mexico. So let's now go take a look at it and see the key issues that basically right now the U.S. really has concern with Canada and Mexico. Auto sector, loss of the U.S. manufactured job, particularly EV supplies. Many, not Canadian auto industry, many American auto industries, they have shipped their manufacture and full assembly to the Mexico, mainly because of the cheap labor. Agriculture, what the US, they call it seasonal dumping. It's basically the Mexican during the peak of their market, they dump a lot of product, berries, avocado, tomatoes into the US market and drop the price of the US market, which the American agriculture, they cannot compete. Another sector is the US is constantly complaining, is a complaint between basically why the American companies are not able to invest in a Canadian market and a Mexican market. So Mexico actually has learned from Canada that basically they have become protectionist more than anything else in their energy market and in their oil and petroleum market. Canada, we are very much protectionist in terms of the telecommunication, airline industry, and also of our oil and energy. American companies, they really want to invest in those areas. Just a side notation, if you take a look at, for example, airline industry in Canada has been dominated perhaps by two airlines, Air Canada and WestJet, and consumers are paying, Canadians are paying high prices because of the lack of the entry and allowing the other foreign airlines that they come and invest and they have a hub here. Also, another big issue is called China's bypass. China, in order to bypass the tariff, is going through Mexico mainly, and they're dumping their product from there and then repackaging it and entering the US market. It is happening in Canada too, but not to the extent of the US Mexican market. Obviously, the labor market, and also within the Canada, another big issues that they are now talking about is the mineral, which is the lithium and cobalt and nickel. Everybody knows the future is going to be a lot of the EV and battery and solar energy, and Canada is really the main hub on a global market, having the necessity and the mineral for this product. Now, also, let's take a look at also how US got into this mess. This is not something that Canada started. This is not something that basically Mexico started. But US actually was the founder of the globalization. Back in 1980 to 2000, it's become outsourcing boom, cheap labor to maximize the shareholder value. CEOs getting richer, stock prices soared, and how they did that by outsourcing. Every manufacturer, in order to lower the cost of the production and increase the profitability, that basically outsourced it to Mexico, Southeast Asia, China, Vietnam, you name it. And consequences of that down the road, it was back in maybe 1994, started with NAFTA and World Trade Organization, that basically they created the deals. But the core issues is globalization favor capital, not labor. Money moves, workers don't. And as much as Mr. Trump or any other world leader wants to have a fair trade agreement, it will not happen because we are dependent at the mercy of the CEOs of all these manufacturers, all these companies, to make sure that their stock market is healthy and that quarterly report is profitable. Therefore, they will do the outsourcing. Now, the issue becomes how you manage the free trade agreement to make sure that everybody plays the fair game. It is literally has become impossible. Canadian government does subsidies to protect their own internal, basically, industries. And those subsidies sometimes are against the free trade rules. And sometimes also the protectionist that's really caused that you're not playing fair and allowing the other parties who have signed the free trade agreement and come invest within the Canadian market. So therefore, the biggest challenge has been weak enforcement of the trade rules. And also, as we go forward, the tech and data replace the hard goods, further squeezing the middle class jobs. And one thing that US really made a bad judgment was basically allowing back sometimes in mid-2000 that China entered into the free trade agreement, believing that they would become like us. They will play it more in a democratic way, but instead China outplayed the US by using the state capitalism. So a majority of the major industries in China are supported by the state government. And frankly, no other industries has been able to compete with the unlimited the cash and support of the subsidies that the state is providing to these companies. So that's a real background of the how the free trade started and what was the cause and root of it. So in 2025, the headline for our housing industries is being basically categorized on five major issues: uncertainty and U.S. tariff, which we talk about it; supply chain and inflation. As you notice in the last report of the inflation is now up to 2.6, and even maybe in some areas is edging to 2.8. And housing start and slowing down of the housing start and affordability still is a major concern, particularly in Ontario and British Columbia and across Canada. Ontario also has another issue, which is the pre-construction, majorly because of the increase of the interest rate in the last 12 months and now continues to drop. But we have an oversupply of the new homes, and particularly in the condo market. And now we have also the political development and housing policies. We are entering to an election, and we don't know which party leaders we should believe that what they're going to do in terms of the housing. So supply chain and inflation, why our inflation has increased. Majority of the inflation has been increased because of the mortgage interest, energy, food, and also instability, global instability in the Red Seas. Because the good news is 2 days ago, there was a sort of a ceasefire, an agreement in the Red Seas between the Ukraine and Russia, because it was interrupting the shipment across the globe. Shelter costs obviously is a big and heavy weight on inflation. And as we discussed in our previous episode, that although that the mortgage cost should not be added to the inflation, but the Canadian government and Canadian economists and Bank of Canada has chosen this route for many years, for the past 2 decades, that basically include that shelter cost. And that shelter cost is almost doing a rate of almost about a 1/3 of the inflation. And many of the people are at the cusp of renewing their mortgages, and still they are paying at a high mortgage rate of during maybe the era of the 2021 and 2022. Food and energy cost has been increasing, mostly due to the conflict on a global market. And now the talk of the tariff. The talk of the tariff caused that the investor, the business investor, the market pause and do not invest back into the market, and really cause the interruption of the supply chain again, and it basically increase the inflation. So Ontario's economic is really basically failing at multiple level. We are the engine of the economy of the Canada. Literally almost 1/3 of the population lives in Ontario. We had the biggest growth of the population compared to the Canada, but our GDP is less than even 1% predicted to grow. Ontarian, they have the highest record of the debt, mainly because of the mortgages that they have against their homes and the housing crisis that we have. In Ontario, we are now predicting by 2030, we need about 1.8 to 2 million homes to hit the affordability lines, and we are not able to doing that. And another housing crisis that we have, the oversupply of the condo. When an economy doesn't perform properly, and then when there are not proper investment back into the industries and the market, then you have the low productivity. When you have a low productivity, you have also falling behind the innovation and outperformance of the workers. That's another. And also now again, the tariff. The tariff costs basically everything pauses, and nobody will move forward in terms of the innovation and investment into the business. Another really important factor that you can see is a self-employment really in Ontario has a negative impact compared to the rest of the Canada. It's still doing good business, but per capita business investment has dropped by almost 3% in Ontario. And total housing start in Ontario is in a negative, versus in Canada is a positive. We are sitting at the -6% of the housing start. So this housing start really influence also the housing market, which is basically holding the prices rather than dropping the prices, which we will talk in the next few slides about the value of the home in Ontario for the last 3 months. So affordability actually has moved to be a little bit better in Ontario, in particularly in Ottawa area, and also even in Toronto area, mainly because of the drop of the interest rate and the slight adjustment of the basically prices by maybe dropping by about 2% of the price. So total home prices are not increasing at a massive rate compared to 2022. And drop of the interest rate is really has helped us to really improve the affordability in Ontario. But we are not even near close of the affordability that the economists or the government look for Ontarian or the rest of the Canada. Since the market has been stagnant, basically we see the ratio of the listing to the sold price is we are in the balanced market. We are sitting at the ratio of the roughly about 51%. So the market is a balanced market. Some area of the Ontario, the market has been more heavily towards the buyer market, but not by much difference of the points. Maybe is sitting at about a 47% ratio of the listing that they are selling in the market versus about 52%. If you take a look at the overall in a Canadian market, you see the annual price change in Canada is not a major drastic change. It's only about -4%. And if you take a look at the Ontario is sitting as basically 2.9, -3%. But you see on a monthly price changes, you will see actually we had a positive gain of about 1.7% in Ontario. So overall, Canadian economy is basically impacted by four forces. The GDP doesn't look really great. 0.7% prediction of the growth, less than a 1% is not good for a healthy economy. It's basically show the sign of the stagnation. And some economists, they believe we are already in recession, but also some believe that basically we landed again, a soft landing, the famous phrase by the Canadian economists that they talk about the soft landing. Inflation rate, unfortunately, has increased, which has bring this question, does the Bank of Canada will drop the rate further in their next meeting, which will be April. Interest rate is dropping very steady. We are now, the Bank of Canada's interest rate is sitting at 2.75, which basically allowing the mortgage market also offer really attractive mortgage rate. We have mortgage rate of as low as about 3.65 to 5.15 in a market between the two different product of the fixed or variable. Impact of the trade tension is been heavy on the Ontario and a Canadian market, as you see, by almost -2%. That's the impact. And that's the biggest impact right now, which has caused the uncertainty in our market across of not only the housing, within the entire industry, with the employment market, with the investment market. Until we manage to really get out of this tension of the trade, we will see this uncertainty. But although we had the uncertainty, the market moving, as we discussed, in a balanced market, so we'll see the transaction happening on a regular basis, not in every sector. Mostly we see on a freehold, which freehold consists of the townhouses, semis, and detached, even for condominium townhouses, but less on the condo apartment buildings. So let's take a look at the overall of the Canadian home ownership. 49% of the Canadian, they basically own their own property, and almost 52% at the last surveys, which was done by Abacus Data, they basically either rent or live with the family. Interesting factor, 71% of the people that they are basically are renting, they also show the desire that they are planning to buy within the next 18 months. Among those 71%, you will see a big ratio of is between the age of the 18 to 29. And obviously the millennial and younger generation of the Z, they're saying they're planning to buy. As we go also towards the baby boomer, you will see that appetite has dropped to about 34%. But the good news is the people are in the market, and we can really actually have a real data based on these uh, positive response by the respondent of the first-time buyers, because our showing across our Ontario within our offices hasn't dropped. We have consistently on a weekly basis, depend on the size of the market, anywhere between about 3,000 showing to 9,000 or 14,000 showing within the city of the Toronto across our offices and across our listings that's happening on a weekly basis, which is really showing that the buyers are out there in the market. So we also notice a big move from urban to the suburban area. And the reason behind it mostly is the price and the choice and a type of the property. A lot of people are moving to the suburbs because they want to have a home. They like to have a home with the perhaps freehold, maybe a detached garage, and less competition also in the suburb area. Uh, Urban core still have the first-time buyer and investor, because the first-time buyers, they basically can afford only a price point of the maybe a limited price point, and it's still maybe to some degree the condo market or entry level could be a really more point of interest for them. Investor, they also still they stay in urban because they see the better rate of return in terms of the renting for them. So the rental market is still, although has had a drop of about 5% in the across Ontario, but is a still tight market, that there is no huge inventory of the rental out there. And the rental market actually seems to be again picking up because of the uncertainty of the market. Inventory, or basically what we have, the month of inventory in an urban market, depend on the area. It could be anywhere between 4 to 6 months. This stat is a little bit skewed because of the condo market. But in the suburb area, we have anywhere between 3 to 4 months. But market by market, it changes. As an example, Durham market, which is the east end of the city of the Toronto, is basically has less inventory. Downtown core has less inventory. We'll see more inventory on the west end of the city. We see more inventory on the condo market, which is basically flooded by mostly investors' listings or investor assignment listing into the market. Let's take a quick look at of the GTA housing market. As you can take a look at it, yes, it was a headline news that the sales has dropped 18.7%. But if you take a look at the price, year over year only has dropped by 2.2%, and the rent about 4%. So the market is stable. And the market is stable and mostly is due to the policy driven and tariff. Condominium market, in the other hand, is 26% increase of the inventory, and then basically in the terms of the sales, and the inventories by increased by 43%. People are surprised by the increase of the sales in the condominium market, because a lot of the condominium market right now in the market, if it's priced right and is a pressure on those prices, they are selling. Rental market overall, you see the prices has maybe across Ontario is dropped by about 6.5. So short term soft, but in long term, if the market continue on the same uncertainty of the Trump, and his market continue on this uncertainty of the pre-construction market and a condo market, we will see the rental. A lot of people will choose to rent rather than buy, maybe pause buying for at least maybe another 12 months. Ottawa market is quite healthy. February of the 2024 compared to February of the 2025, basically pretty much flat market. The inventory is healthy, is basically a little bit dropped by 3 months by about 12%. Their condo market pretty much flat, and the condo inventory is actually less. It's surprising in many markets such as Ottawa. Ottawa market used to be one of those markets that the people would use it as an entry market, job market was really good in Ottawa market. Now with the federal election, party leaders are talking different tone, different messages. Some people, they are maybe worried about the government workers in Ottawa, ministries workers in Ottawa. Therefore, we see a little bit of the uptick in terms of the condo market. So the condo market is moving, entry level of the condo market is moving. Simcoe County, we noticed an uptick of the prices year over year. Price changes, if you compare it to the peak of the last year, it was only a minus drop of about 6%. And the new listing, in Barrie is basically up, but overall the Simcoe County has dropped. And the inventory of the market is across the region is totally different. The inventory is anywhere between about 3 to 5 months. Days on the market has dropped substantially in Simcoe County by about 23 days in the last month. Peterborough market, it's a new market. It's a market that basically, because of the accessibility of the 407, many GTA people are opting to buy in Peterborough market. It takes about an hour to drive to Peterborough and back to the downtown core. If you work in a downtown core, and a hybrid model of the work continue to be part of our life. And therefore, you see the Peterborough market, the freehold market is up by 5%. The inventories are down and tightening. And there is not a big condo market there, but as you can see, the prices has dropped slightly and the inventory has dropped slightly too. So what is happening with the market right now? That's $1 million question. And everybody's asking why the buyers are not making decision fast and what is going on with the sellers. So the FOMO, missing the market, has left the market. The buyers are not anxious. The buyers are not anxious when they were anxious in 2021, 2022. Oh my God, I'm going to miss this listing. I wish I could have seen it last night. No, they are taking their time. Buyers expect deals or price drop. When I talk about the price drop, they expect that the price be the right price of the market value. Even in some cases, in some areas in Ontario, when the price is a right price and a right market value. And what's the definition of the right price, right market value? A price of a home that has a comparable of the sold prices at least within the last 60 days. We cannot go back compared to the prices of a home that it was sold last year. The market changed literally right now on the every 30 days cycle. Sellers, what I like to refer to it this year, I call it relisting season. Sellers, unfortunately, they believe that they can get higher prices and they basically go for the strategy of the maybe listing low, create a multiple offer. They don't achieve what they really have expected and they relist. We see across Ontario anywhere between 21 to 29% of our new listing are relist. That's also skewed the data, and those relists are the result of the sellers either is not motivated, either is not accepting the reality of the market. Unfortunately, some people, they have bought in 2021, 2022. They bought at the peak of the market. And unfortunately, you cannot obtain those prices as much as you wanted. In certain area of the city, such as, for example, Riverdale, beaches, downtown areas, or hot market, you can. But this market has tremendous opportunities. And we have examined many listings across our companies, and we have noticed that the multiple offers are happening. Are the multiple offer across the companies are successful? Absolutely not. The one that they are priceless, they have a right expectation with the sellers they are selling, and the one that they have a wrong expectation, they come back to the market as a pool of the relist. So keep in mind, the buyers, they expect the deals. That's what they want, because that's what the media are portraying, that the market is a buyer market. The market is actually a balanced market, slightly depending on some area of the buyer's market. But we have not seen the flood of the listing comes into the market. We have not seen the desperation of the sellers into the market. And the reason is because the Canadian home ownership always has been solid and there is enough equity in each property. There are cases, obviously, with any market that the people are over leveraged and they have high risk right now at the moment with high mortgages, and they cannot carry their fulfillment in terms of paying their debt and everything, and they are basically doing some fire sale in the market. And we have seen a small percentage of the power of sale that is coming into the market, but it's case by case, but it's not even sitting at a 1% of the market, not even 1/10% of the market. So, promises versus reality. Who got the plan to solve the Canadian housing mess? This is for the next 30 days. You're going to hear from Carney's, from Polvier, from Mr. Singh. Those are the three contenders that I will solve the problem of the housing in Canada. I personally, for years, I have said I believe it. Unfortunately, we have such a mess that is literally impossible to solve these problems. But let's take a look at the policies that was announced in 2024 and some announced in 2025. Federal policies, basically National Housing Strategy, $82 billion for affordable housing. Bill C-56, GST remove on new rental bill until 2030. Mortgage changes, $1.5 million increase for the CMHCs and 30 years amortization. Ontario, as of January of this year, introduced the new Ontario Building Code, the garden suite, and municipalities, they call it Housing Accelerated Plan, and they are basically rewarding the developers that they meet their guidelines and everything. But all of these policies, if you take a look at it and you pay attention to it, is actually a bandage for the demand. There is nothing for supply. You can talk about $82 billion affordable housing. Who is going to build these homes? We are constantly creating policies that we are helping buyers to buy the properties, but we are increasing the demand, and by default, we are actually causing the increase of the prices of the home. When you increase the cap of the CMHC from 1 million to 1.5 million, what do you think going to happen in the seller's mind? Those sellers that they were sitting in the range of maybe 1.1 to 1.2, now they're going to say, oh, the first-time buyer can afford to pay me $1,250,000. So we are not helping in terms of providing the supply. We're just basically creating the bandage for demand. So right now, there's a big talk by Mr. Carney and Mr. Polvier regarding the GST. The developers are very excited about this immediate saving. Up to $50,000 save upfront would be the maximum amount would be. What is the risk for this? Basically, you are going to drive the prices up again. Yes, you are helping the developer to eliminate a part of their equation cost of offering a cost to the consumers, but I would argue this differently, that they will cause the price of these units goes higher, and because they will see there will be demand. Yes, you will help affordability for first-time buyers, but it doesn't apply to the resale market. Perhaps it should apply to the resale market also as a first-time buyer too, not only the new homes. Encourage new home construction. Again, this GST is benefit more developer rather than the consumers. It's targeted homes under $1 million. Is a temporary relief. Again, it's a bandage. It's not a relief that basically can be sustained for a long run. And it will be a limited supply response to it. Each party leader has now come out and talk about GSTs differently. Mr. Carney talks about the first-time buyer. Mr. Poirier, as of yesterday, says all buyers. I personally believe it will be better for a targeted audience. So the targeted audience should be the first-time buyer, not for all buyers. All buyers, it could be also investors. If you give this capability to the all investor to buy more properties, guess what's going to happen? It will drive up the prices. Supply shortages, basically federal construction push plus modular homing. And Mr. Polvier talks about 15% annual build target tied to municipal funding. They both address the supply, by why we are using the taxpayer money for building the supply, why we are not open into the market for investors, why we are not coming with a program that we can help the developer, that they have properties, buildings, lands that at the moment that they cannot sell, but be part of these new supply for the new housing and affordable housing. City of the Toronto just announced that they have a plan of the $2.5 billion for building 5,000 basically units, affordable units. And the same city right now, the developer in the same city, they have an issue of the selling their product, selling their towers, selling the site that they have approval. They have limited funding because they cannot sell them. Why the city doesn't go make a deal with these developer? And it has a two result. You got a developer that is going to have a successful outcome of this project. You create the job, and also you add the pool to the affordable housing. Red tape and municipal delays, basically nobody. Mr. Povia talks about direct municipal incentive to reduce bureaucracy, but yes, he could be a winner as a person that basically talks about it right now, but going through each municipalities and bypassing the councillor is not an easy task. Modular home, yeah, great, promote it, it's cheaper, it's faster, but is it sustainable at the mass scale? Using federal land, mostly NDP is promising that 100,000 home using the federal land. Again, using those federal land, yes, you own the federal land, but you're in an area of the municipalities or cities, and no one will basically it's not going to be a short-term solution. It will be a long-term solution. No one has talked about this speculation investor pressures because obviously both parties, the both leading parties, they realize that in a long run, they need investor to come to Canada. They cannot make the Canadian market anti-investors. It's not good overall, not only for a housing market, it's not good for the Canadian economy. So America first or America alone. So that's what Mr. Trump campaign was. You know, America first. Who cares about the rest of the global market? So one of the most important things that now the Canadian are worried is the steel and aluminum. And he has delayed the tariff on the steel aluminum till April 2nd. But I want you to take a look at it and you see Canada share of the total steel of the imports from the Canadian market into the US market is almost Canada is basically sitting at the leading in both area. And the reason behind it is because of the geographical location, the closeness to the US, the quality of the steel and aluminum that we produce, which meet the guideline and the regulation of the US market. And steel and aluminum, people, they think, okay, is it a product that is now used everywhere? Literally, auto industry, airline industry, technology industry, even many construction industries are related to this. As much as he make it threats about creating this tariff against our steel and aluminum, he's by default increasing the prices for his end user in US. So it's maybe a big talk at the moment, but it's not a long-term solution. And as we discussed earlier, when we started the presentation, he's only using this basically to take advantage of the negotiation. So Canada supplies almost 6.5 million tons, which is 56% of the US. Why Canada? We talk about the proximity. US produces significant steel, but lacks enough aluminum, energy and environmental costs. The cost here in Canada is a lot less. And industrial impact, it will be a massive industrial impact. And the alternative only for US, if really cause the breaking the aluminum and steel industry in Canada, they got to rely on China. China is the #1 aluminum producer in the world and Middle East, but they don't want to deal with the China because they basically have already flooded the market with the cheaper and lower quality of the aluminum and the steels. Real strategy is basically what he's trying to do is basically trying to use it on a negotiation strategy. And he basically should focus on reshoring the jobs. Basically, as long as he comes up with an agreement with Canada and Mexico to make sure that basically between these three countries, that's why I refer to it as reshoring jobs, that we create the jobs within the market and we pay them a fair market value as it was established in 2020. Minimum wage was $16 for Mexican market. In Canada is a lot higher. So it should be able to protect this industry across the three countries. He is pushing for U.S. energy independence. Is a short-term wins. It cannot be sustained in a long run because, again, we go back to the fundamental of the global trade. It was created because of the lowering the cost. Obviously, he has damaged his relationship with the NATO and other allies, but he is just basically appealing to the voter that voted him to be in the White House. Can Canada becomes also, this is also another question recently. Everybody says, okay, let's buy made in Canada. Let's do everything independently. And we should not touch US. Again, I made a disclaimer. I'm not in favor of the Mr. Trump policies, or I'm not advocating Mr. Trump policies, but I just want to take a look at only the housing market. Can you build all Canadian homes? The reality is no, you can't. Yes, we got the lumber. Yes, we got the concrete, drywall, steel, aluminum, and everything. But many other parts for a home, such as HVAC, electrical, appliance, plumbing components, finishes, all come from US and China and Europe. So it will be a short run. The cost of the homes, if it's been built 100% Canadian, it would be a lot higher than you see it today. And therefore, that's why these free trades agreement was created. And technical possibility, yes, it is possible for a smaller scale. If you're doing suddenly maybe 20 garden suites homes in the city of Toronto, and you have a local manufacturer that assemble all the walls and everything, yes, you can do it here. But if you want to do a mass scale of the subdivision, it's not going to work. So let's really take this idea out of our mind that we can have fully become independent country in terms of all the product, all the services, everything that we have. It is possible, but it's increased the cost. When increase the cost, it becomes unaffordable, not only in housing, in every other sector. Therefore, do we have the ability to pay the Canadian, the businesses, to pay the Canadian higher wages so they can basically afford to have these product or these home, these services? No. We basically, by default, cause the companies that leave Canada, and they basically, rather than basically create jobs in Canada, they will basically move their manufacture, their production line somewhere else, and they will basically export it to Canada. So what's the solution? Fraser Institute did a really good study, which I really was shocked and proud the Canadian institution has done this study. They really take a look at how many homes we need by 2030, based on the CMHC's report, based on the Canadian provinces. We need about 22 million units by 2030. Out of that 22 units, almost about 14% of it now is in Ontario. Low cost scenario was $472,000 per unit. High cost scenario is at $520,000 per unit. This is an average across Canada. This is not including the cost of land. This is including the cost of the construction, the development charges, and everything. So it will cost, in order we hit the affordability that we had probably about 12 years ago across Ontario and across Canada, we need to invest about $1.8 trillion in housing. Basically, another $364 million per year. And this is the million-dollar question. Federal government and provinces, they don't have this money. So what is the solution? Canada has become a heavy tax on income of individual for years. We have become a country that heavily involved on the income of taxing businesses, taxing individual. So maybe it's time for us, similar to the free trade of the NAFTA, which was implemented in 1994. Yes, in 2020, Trump had some valid argument to restructure it. Same thing as our business. Real estate industry has evolved, has changed. We don't practice similar to 1994. Technology, digital expectation of the consumers. Maybe it's time for us, instead of the shift from the tax to income, tax to spending. This has been proven system in Singapore, in the Scandinavian countries, that basically sometimes you heard the terminology of the VAT. So what happened, instead of you have a flat rate of the income tax, in Singapore, the flat rate of the income tax for $1 million income and up is 22 to 24%. But they have a heavy tax on a product that you buy. What does it cost? It costs that people spend within their means rather than pay upfront a heavy tax, and maybe they are not even using the product. So it creates additional saving and capital for consumers, but it also create additional income for a government. So it reduces also the government borrowing. Yes, of course, we got to cut the red tape, but also we need to be more a country of the open door for bringing the investor and friendliness into our market. I love the Canadian banks. We got 5, 6 major banks. In the last 10 years, we have the evolution of the maybe trust companies that they open. But we are really a closed door. There are American banks that they would love to come to the Canadian market, and they are maybe more risk verse in terms of lending and investing in businesses in Canada. So we need to accept to basically attract more foreign investment in banking, in infrastructures, in our transportation system, in our highway systems. And we really need to take a look at our taxing system, because we cannot continue keep increasing the tax burden and just basically the cost of all these infrastructure in Canada by default, not only in Canada, in all other countries, is going to increase and increase and increase. And unfortunately, we fall behind for the last 15 years in terms of the infrastructure and the development. So if we need 22 million homes in 5 years, I'm sadly have to tell you, it is impossible. Mr. Carney, Mr. Polvia, Mr. Singh can promise you as many things that they want. One announced the other day, I will reduce the income tax rate by 1%. One just basically beat the other one, just said, I will reduce the income tax rate by 3%. One said GST up to $1 million. One said GST up to $1.3 million. These are all promises. These are all short-term bandage. We need a long-term bandage. Some people maybe in this audience are saying, you guys are in real estate business. You should not talk about being you want your market to be more hot, more competitive. We basically in favor of our industry selling more homes and make it always competitive. No, we are also, as a community, we're thinking about the future generation. If we continue doing this, all the urban centers, they become literally unaffordable, and we continue to see the mass emigration of the people leaving the big urban center, going to the smaller suburb. And in the smaller suburb, if we don't also have a proper planning of the infrastructure and amenities and services and transportation, we are aiming for a disaster, because we cannot provide the support and services that the consumers they need in education, in health, you name it. So it will become a massive, the gridlock of the people that they need for health support. They have to come back to the big urban center because they cannot get it where they are living. So the future, the plan is really think about our taxation model, and two, about making the Canada more attractive for investment. So let's talk about a little bit of the politics. Canada's election, who can take on Trump? So that's being the number one question through the polls. And they believe that the Carney can do better because he comes with the economic background. They believe also that some believe that Polvia can do it because he's a fighter and he's basically going to make the changes. One thing that is clear for me on a personal level, is Canada ready for a major restructure? Mr. Polvia talks about major balancing the book, cutting jobs, particularly within the government labor force, because Justin Trudeau hired more than what he needed. Mr. Carney talks about that you can't change Trump behavior, but we have to learn how to deal with him. But most importantly, our Canadians are ready for massive changes of the hardship. Balancing the book is great. We should balance the book, but are we ready to suffer for 3 to 5 years in terms of balancing the book? Because that's what it takes. When you cut cost in measure, it takes hardship work. It takes pressure on the consumers. I don't think the Canadian economy, even the Canadian consumers, are ready at the moment to have more hardship, because the Canadian economy, as we talked earlier, is lagging. I do believe that Carney's approach is better, because he's basically talking about, let's understand what he wants and let's get back to the negotiation table. That's a positive news, because I have talked around our offices for months now, and I firmly believe perhaps by summer we will have some sort of an agreement. Maybe we don't like that agreement, the new version of the US, Mexico, Canada's 2.0 in terms of the tariff. But that's how it's going to happen. If we don't do it this year, in 2026, the contract explicitly says sunset clause every 6 years. All countries, they have the right to come back on the table and renegotiate it. So, but you have also noticed what happened to the Trump. Trump in the last 2 weeks, his tone has softened. And his tone has softened is only simple based on one reason, because of the stock market. In November of the last year, before he gets elected, he talks about all these tariff renegotiation, and the rally and the supporter, and the stock market was doing really good. When he got elected in January, when he was in the White House, the stock market was doing good. And then we start really disrupting the economic system of the market. The stock market really lost its momentum, by big percentage. S&P 500, 2%, NASDAQ, 2.6%. And guess why his tone of the language has changed? We talk at the beginning globalization. We talk at the beginning CEO of these global companies. He has got the message. Take it easy. Let's renegotiate. We agree with you that we need to protect American jobs. We need to protect American industries, but let's really get to the negotiation tables, because by doing what you are doing, we are losing money. When they lose money, these CEOs, they don't look good in front of their shareholder. When they don't look good in front of their shareholder, there will be the backdoor lobbies pressure on presidents, could be on the prime minister here in Canada, or could be the global leader. So this is another positive news. He cannot really disturb the economic system the way he wants to do it, because as much as he wants to do it, he has to play the game that has been established for the last 50 years. He referred 2 days ago, just for fun, to Dirty 15 Nation. We are among the Dirty 15 Nation, apparently, because these are the nation that U.S. has the big trade deficit. And very interesting, on this list that he mentioned, this list is not confirmed. This list is basically through the media source. Mexico is also there. Canada is there. And the reason the both of us are there, but Mexico has the highest, biggest surplus trade with U.S. Last year, in 2023, was $150 billion. So it's for fun. These are the countries that he probably going to have a list that he wants to negotiate with all of them. So we are not alone. So remember, we are not alone. So it's a global market that he's trying to renegotiate. So I'm sharing these information because I want to give the confidence to all of you and to the market, and your clients, if they are here on this call and watching, that we are in a balanced and a steady market. Our market has not stalled. Our market has not crashed. And we are seeing the transaction happen. In fact, I call this market opportunity, particularly for the buyers, that there is opportunity. even for those people that they really want to invest in the market. So believe it or not, there is a joke in the media that say Trump is even flexible on being flexible. He is. He is. He is. He received advice from his confidant, but he is a different type of the president. He doesn't have the manner and protocol of the global leader that basically does the discussion and the negotiation behind the closed doors. But he has a big ego. And we got to basically learn how to deal with him. And I think our politician on a both side of the two leader, they have got that message that there is no point of basically poking each other. Yes, retaliation of the tariff, and we put the tariff on the product that American buys for us is fair. It's a fair game, but ultimately we got to find a solution in terms of the negotiation. So let's go back to the real estate market, the market segment across Canada. So, and then that's what you see the market is healthy. If you take a look at the Vancouver, the Toronto, and Victoria, the most expensive market, okay, you see the price point is by about a 1% up. So it's basically remain still least affordable, but we see a minimal growth and price stabilization is happening. Mid-range market, Hamilton, Burlington, Kitchener, Waterloo, Ottawa, Barrie District, and you see the drop again. It's anywhere between about a 1 to 2%. Barrie District, which we have a very close sort of data, is facing a correction maybe after a strong growth that it had. If you recall, anywhere between 2021 to 2023, suddenly a $500,000 average home in Barrie District or Simcoe County, $800,000, $900,000. So they are doing a little bit of the sort of a correction, which is we talked earlier about 5 or 6%. Hamilton and Kitchener-Waterloo, slight soft landing. Ottawa, stable with a moderate growth. Although Ottawa is basically, or maybe there is some sort of the concern about the government workers, but still there is a very decent pool of the companies, technology hub in Ottawa, and facilities and amenities, health system, schools, transportation. A lot of people, a younger generation, are attracted to live in Ottawa. Affordable entry level, of course, Regina, St. John, Winnipeg. That's where we see a lot of migration happening from province of Ontario, particularly going to the St. John area. Top growth market, Quebec, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Montreal. Obviously, Edmonton after Calgary's boom, so people are going towards maybe a little bit north, Edmonton, and moderate decline. You see again in Barrie District. I mentioned about the Barrie District, and you see the Hamilton and Ottawa, but it's a minor moderate decline. It's not a major. If you take a look at all these average of these percentage, you will see we literally probably sitting anywhere between 0 to 1% or 0 to 2%. In the grand scheme of the market that we had, if you have a 2% year over year or 3% year over year, or even 5% year over year decline or increase, it's nothing. Ontario market in the last 10 years had an average of about 9% growth. So we are adjusting this year compared to the last year. If you adjust this even decline in a comparison of the 10 years market, you're basically looking at maybe our average 10 years growth sits at about 7%. So we are still on a positive territory. So what is this market? This is the final slide for you. So this is the market to attack, not sit back. Why? Opportunity. Buyers have the opportunity to negotiate. Buyers, they have opportunity within the condo market. Within the condo market, I keep emphasizing on the condo market, that you got investors that we refer to them in the market as a rookie investor. They were not professional investor. They got emotionally dragged into the investment of the condo that they could not afford because they were counting on flipping the papers, and now they got caught. You basically can buy these condos at the prices that they paid. Some they paid really attractive prices back in 2019, 2020 at $1,000 per square foot. They have paid 20% deposit and they are willing to forfeit their deposit or partially give some of the deposit in favor of the purchaser. So if you are a first-time buyer, that's entry level. If you are an investor, that's the market you want also to enter in the market. Believe it or not, as much that the federal government and provincial government are going to help in terms of building homes, funding, the price of these condos, I guarantee you, will not go in downtown Toronto below 1,000. In Ottawa, probably going to hover around 750, and in Barrie and Simcoe, probably going to be around 650. So whatever market the base price it is, and whatever was fair price was it, is not going to go below that because of the cost of the labor and the cost of construction and the development charges. Yes, some people got caught that they basically paid a fake price during the madness and rush. Those prices that we paid $1,500, $1,700, $1,900, anywhere between 2020, second part of 2022 and 2023, those are the one it's going to take a long time to come back. Knowledge is your edge. Master the rates, economic signal, and your market. Understand how the economic works. Understand, and this applies to the consumers too. Don't pay attention to the media. Please talk to your knowledgeable realtor and ask the right question. And be fair. If you're a buyer out there, you got to play a fair game. If you're a seller, you have to have a right expectation from the market. Market will dictate to you. Don't miss the opportunity. If you sell now, you buy now, so it's the same win. If you want to wait down the road to sell because you believe the market is going to come up, it may. That's fine. That's fair. But understand, our market probably will see a movement once these free trade agreements are settled and done. Probably the earliest I would suspect will be the summer of this year, end of the summer of this year. With the condo market, you will see a rebound of the condo market probably in mid-2026. And the reason is very simple. We got about 35,000 units that we need to clean up. But the developer are now building. Remember, in 2026 and 2027, all the stats shows that we will be in a shortage of the condo again in the market. So you got to maybe a year to 18 months opportunity. So build generational wealth. You know, this is the time for investment. This is the time to buy the secondary property. This is the time to move up. Luxury market. Luxury market is also really performing totally different. If you are in the range of the anywhere between, I would say, $2 to $3 million, you'll see a slow move. But you see anywhere between $3 to $5 million, you see a really nice and a steady move. And the reason behind it is those homes used to be $500,000, $1 million more expensive, and now the developers or sellers are under the pressure to sell them. No time for dreamers. Price sharp or walk away. That's my advice. Don't waste your opportunity if you're a seller. If you're also an agent, price according to the market. Otherwise, you will miss the opportunity, and you give the buyers out there the opportunity to renegotiate harder with you. Thank you very much for listening. We went a little bit off the overtime, but I thought it's very important to cover the understanding of the trades, how the trade started, free trade, NAFTA, USMCA, Canada, and the logic behind it. I firmly believe that the market is healthy, and I'm saying this to you sincerely. But if you're comparing this market to the peak of the market that we had, sadly, yes, it's not a compared to that market. But seeing this market doing this job for 29 years, this is a very good and healthy market. Thank you very much. Shant, I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, so first question comes from Matt Castles in Toronto. He said, you mentioned Canada being a protectionist country for industries such as dairy, poultry, etc. Do you foresee that changing and the US having access to our market?
Historically, Canada has protected itself. So Mr. Trump is going to be only in the White House for 4 years. I'll see some changes allowing what is US is asking US is asking, can I have investment in your market? That's what they want to come in. We are very much protectionist country, not allowing foreign entities come invest in our market. But it's very interestingly, if you read the China capitalism has come to the Canadian market, has invested heavily in many of our industry, including oil and gas, uh, could be through buying stock or share of those companies. Answer to your question, yes, I will see and small changes that is going to happen. But the government has this ability to allow these investors come to Canada and also protect the industry because the government cannot continue subsidizing everything. And subsidizing everything, Matt, is basically mean you and me, we're paying higher taxes. This is not sustainable model. We can create, they come, they invest, but we also protect the local worker, local industries. We can have long-term contract with the benefits that protect the industries. But we cannot just continue just saying, okay, we don't allow them, and the dairy industry cries and suffers. They had a 1 year bad, and the government say, okay, I'll print money, I'll subsidize you. I'll see some changes going to happen. Same thing with the aviation industry. Same thing with the telecommunication industry. Aviation industry is another industry. You know, the cost of the airline ticket from here to Ottawa is $560. The cost of the airline tickets from here to Florida is $320. Why? Why we are paying more? Because lack of competition.
Okay, so next question will come from Sean Tassay from Ottawa. How many years until the average prices hit back to the 2021 peak COVID prices?
A long time, Sean. COVID prices was a fake market. Literally zero interest rate, quarter point, government stimulus. Consumers had zero spending because they were home. They were working from home for a long period, almost a year. It took a year before we felt comfortable going even socializing because March of the 2021, the first COVID vaccine came in. So I don't think so. We are going back to 2021 prices. To be honest with you, it will be probably a 5 to 7 years run.
Okay, next question comes from Farah Panahi. Why should home prices decrease if material and labor costs are rising?
Good point. You know, material and labor costs are increasing, so the home prices will not decrease unless the government come with a plan of the bringing heavily a labor workforce that we built oversupply. In homes, we have not been able to build oversupplies. Do not also believe when the developer says, oh, I make this much money. No, they make a good margin. But we have to adjust the development charges. We have to adjust the taxation on these businesses. But in return, we got to also have a policy to control the ending of the prices margin. If the government doesn't want to bring the foreign investment, foreign labor force to build massive subdivision after subdivision, because that's what we need. It's all about the timing. If the government wants to pay the taxpayer money to support these businesses, could be the real estate industry, could be the development industry, what's in return the consequences of I'm giving you the support? There has to be some condition over there in order to balance the price, to control the market. Otherwise, Farah, you're right. Otherwise, we can pay them a check. We can tell them GST is off and the prices will drop maybe for a short period of the time. But in the long run, they will be back up and they got the benefit of the GSTs, HSTs, whatever benefit the government gives them.
Okay, great, Steve. Here's the next. Okay, the next one's a two-part question. So give me a second so I can read it properly. It's from Mark Richards in Toronto. Do you feel that the bank will backstop the shortfalls on the condos? And the second part of that is, will the government step in if we see mass defaults?
The banks are doing overall good job with those. We haven't seen, as you know, guys, we are a large company. We see all kind of transaction in our head office. We haven't seen a major sort of, I call it a default, not even 50 files so far, that basically on the day of the closing, they haven't. We talk with the developer on a consistent basis. Some developer at the beginning, they came out, they said, oh, appraised value. And majority of the appraised value, they came out 10% less. But we have now noticed RBC, Bank of Montreal, I think TD, the same thing, that they are really appraising at the value that it was appraised. Why they feel more comfortable doing it that? Because the interest rate has dropped. So the risk is less. Yes, if there is a mass default, I guarantee you Canadian government will not have no choice than intervene. If you recall during our Connect, Sal Gutierrez, even Benjamin Tal, they both said, the tariff, the correction of the real estate market may bring us back to the era of the COVID, meaning stimulus package from the government, drop of the interest rate to give the confidence to the market. From 2008, all the modern societies, all the Western societies have learned. George Bush made one deadly mistake, let the Lehman Brothers fail and did not bail them out. And it cost US 6 years of the stagnation of the market. And uh, no Western leader will ever do that because it will hurt the economy so much that they'll bail out. So the answer is yes, they will bail out.
Okay, next question comes from Dawson. The question is, will the OSFI eliminate the stress test?
There's a talk about it, Dawson. The superintendent of the bank regulation has talked recently that they are looking at stress tests, and they want to shift the stress test from consumers to the bank. So, the bank regulator guarantees the bank monitor their lending practice. They are saying why we are creating this against the consumers. Maybe we should create this against the bank, make sure their practice is healthy. So yeah, the answer is they are looking at a different option right
now. Next question comes from Jerry Hendricks in the Niagara Hamilton area. Given everything you shared today, Steve, what key strategies would you recommend that realtors implement to stay ahead and grow their business in 2025?
Stay informed. We talk about this at Connect. Consumers are emotional, but the consumers are also intelligence in terms of gathering the information, understanding the information, but they really have a difficulty to really come to a proper conclusion and understanding the market, the dynamic of under the market, because they read the headlines. They're emotional, they're scared for their job. They see tariff talks, they see the news media talks about the job losses, shutting down this factory, shutting down that factory. So the more information that you learn in depth about the economy, about the tariff, about the consequences, about when they talk about the auto industry, oh, we're going to close the auto industry and we move it. It's not going to happen overnight, guys. A plan, my background was engineering, a plant, it takes years to be reassembled. Retooling is not that easy. So the more, Jerry, your team, your agents, or any realtor out there educate themselves and they can deliver the information and attach it to the consumer's emotional intelligence, they have a better chance of the winning at the with them and gain their trust. So connect the economical intelligence to the emotional intelligence.
All right, we have two more questions, Steve, and then we'll call it a day. The following question comes from Michael I'm sorry, Michael, if I'm going to try my best. So Michael Mezheritsky from Remax Hallmark One Group. His question is, are there any developments with policies around foreign investments in Canada?
I'm not clear about your question. Development around the foreign policies. I'm not clear. What do you mean by the
I'm
40?
guessing it says policies around foreign investments in Canada.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, foreign investment in Canada. Yeah, there are. There are. Canadian government is a protectionist. There are rules against the percentage of the foreign entity can own a Canadian entity. Yeah, there are rules. There are very restrict rules around it, which is good. Protectionist is good, guys, but to a certain degree. We cannot play. We are open. We cannot play this game. We are among the member of the G7, which is the leader of the capitalism of the free trade. But at the same time, we're also playing the game of the socialist behavior. We can't. We can't. You got to have a balance here. Otherwise, these two are conflicting each other. And it's basically, again, who gets hurt? Consumers. Canadians are getting hurt because the government needs more money, more funding to function. The government is like a company. It's like a company that needs money comes. And if the money only comes from the taxpayers, rather than money come from the investors, the money comes from the infrastructure in this country. The money comes from the services that they provide, and then the consumers pay for those services rather than the government just subsidize those services and then the consumers use it. So then we will have a really a flourish future.
Okay, sorry, Steve. I don't know if you said it. I probably missed it. He also wanted to say basically, can foreign buyers buy?
Yeah, foreign buyers can buy, but there is a limitation. Yes, there is a limitation. Yes, they can.
Okay. And as for a final question, comes from Pasqua. I believe it's from our Merton office. Who's going to buy all these pre-con condos, especially with the foreign buyer ban?
Pasco, I think, is from our Queen office, if I recall. Anyway, Pasco, there will be a buyer out there for them. Maybe it takes longer, but there will be a buyer. Very interesting with the drop of the interest rate. We talk to the developers on a consistent basis. We ask them, what's the rate of your default? In one project in Thornhill with 400 units, only 8 units were default. 8 units out of 400 units. So the rate of default, which whatever the media is portraying, is not as big. We have very top producing agents in our company that heavily work on a pre-construction. I constantly ask them this question. Are you seeing a lot of your clients as just walking away? No, they're working through the sort of finding a solution, either a solution with a developer, either a solution with the bank, or assign the paper to someone else. Remember what I said. I said buyers, they are looking for deals. So as long as us as a realtor find those deals, there is a buyers out there. It's going to take longer. Right now, the inventory for a pre-con condo downtown is maybe 7 or 8 months, but it's doable. It is doable. No more questions, Shant?
No, that's all, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Stay positive, and the market is good. Just continue your with a positive mindset, with a positive attitude. Learn, and look forward to see you around.